Alright, hi. We're gonna look at this is what I call the missing link. So let's just I wrote some stuff down here. Let me tell you about the missing link. The title is the missing link. The missing link is an individual way to take front leaded locomotives to the end of the train somewhere. It consists of an electronic coupling them. Here's the problem. It requires retrofitting of all freight cars and consists continuously an aspect of the train air brake handling. The jumper car need to be able to snap away, must be safely coupled with a knife switch, off or isolated. There needs to be a shunt wall with a retarder electric current from the possible show. The jumper cable needs to at least a sin of 9, which is not very flexible. It works on the principle of a double-headed locomotive. The electric schematic is slightly modified to form a multiple-unit headlight jumper. The electric schematic is slightly modified from a multi-unit headlight jumper. It's also suggested to install a battery because of the cars, because longer the train being like a mile long consists would dampen the voltage. Lastly, electronic connections would be last in the yard switching operations, and this is where you get the end. Having a mid motor somewhere in the mid, a locomotive in the mid, or at the end of the train heading on the event of the break apart of the dump the air, cut the power to the train's rear front locomotive. Operation would follow setup for a double heading. As far as motor cutout and isolations go, a midway may need to be manned. And this is Ab Nugent Rosenberger's April 5th, 2025. So let's look at the electric schematic. Alright, we have multi-receptacle pins for jumpers. These are the multi-receptacle pins for the jumpers. And then it goes into the draft lugs, rubber receptacle, multi-shunt wall, shows your shunt wall. And then the jumper cables. Also, you'll need a knife switch at the A and B end. So we have A end of the crane, and then these from this knife switch is somewhere in between. There's a battery, and then at the B end of the switch, it's mirrored. So the knife switches, jumper cables, receptacles, and multi-unit receptacles. You need to shut the knife switches off in between because of the three-step protection. So you would want to think of three-step protection. All knife switches would be off until the receptacles are clean. So let's take a look at some of the parts. We have a multi-control jumper cable. This would have to be plugged in somewhere in between here. And then let's look at the draft lug. Alright, you can see the draft lug. Draft lugs are sometimes made out of metal, but they can be made out of rubber. So we'd have this between this shunt silicone rectifier wall, and which I showed. The shunt rectifier wall is right here in these blue boxes. I forgot. It says draft lug, rubber receptacle, multi-unit shunt wall. So you have your jumper cables. They need to come detached. It's also, just like air hoses do, another jumper cable, multi-unit receptacle. This would be somewhere in between a rubber draft lug, and then you could put like a belt around the jumper cable, like a lasso, to pull them on and off. Safeguarding it. Let's go to knife switch. A knife switch at both A and B ends. Receptacle again, and multi-unit receptacle. This is the air brakes. I don't know why I put it in here, but anyways, it would like so this is multi-unit headlight. You can see the multi-unit headlight. So here would be the night I changed it, modified it a little bit. So and then we have a sin of 9. And then this is the battery. Let's see what else we have for missing link. I've designed a battery draft lug. Let's see if we can't open this up. Alright, designed a U. Magnets come in a U shape. Sometimes a horseshoe magnet. So what I did is make a battery that you can retrofit around original draft gear, and we'll take a look at that now. There seems to be one error on the sketch. So the draft gear's in the middle, the coupler would go in, and then as you can see, here's on the top. There's there's four different contacts. In the middle, you see 8 different cells. And let's take a cross-sectional look at this. We'll go the other way. So in there, there's your U-shaped cell, horseshoe magnet kind of. Notice there's a gap between the wall and the draft gear, and then the lid screws on the bottom, and the lid screws on the top. So it could be done different, but that's just the way I did it. So you can take the draft gears out. There should be a P port. Never mix water into acid. Always mix acid into water. So now we have a draft gear battery, and we'll go back to the AutoCAD linkage. In the middle somewhere, I wrote battery, so we'd have battery, knife switches on the side for like your 3-step protection, the jumper cables, draft lug rubber receptacle units, and the pins. And that's and to keep this going, you'd have to have all the switches lined up until you get to the mid-consist train that's in the mid-consist. And then once again, we're talking about motor cutout switches and isolation running. Well, it would be in neutral. So this is called the missing link.